Do you believe in open houses, or should I consider an open house on this one?
I don't believe in open houses to sell the house. Only 4% of houses sell because of the open house and the sign. Okay, 4%. The reason you do it is more buyer and seller leads. Listen, this buyer representation rule, the no buyer agent commission rule that we have now is actually great for listing agents because there are a lot of buyers that don't want to be locked into a buyer agency agreement. They're still buyer agent, agency agreement averse, even though that's what the rules are. So there are a lot of buyers out there that want to be unrepresented, and the best way to reach them is through an open house. And so it creates an opportunity for you to meet more sellers. It creates an opportunity for you to meet more buyers, and it dramatically increases the likelihood that you're going to get paid twice on that house by identifying a buyer that wants you to represent them because they think they got the best opportunity to win a house. Listen, doing more open houses on an overpriced house doesn't work. Okay. But you got to remember the reason you do open houses is to get more leads. And in this case, you're really looking for buyer leads. And hopefully one of those buyer leads will result in them wanting to write an offer on the house that you represent. All right. Now, a lot of agents go about open houses wrong. You should show up at that open house with competitive houses. So go into the MLS, look at similar houses in a similar geographic area and what I call switch houses. Now, I learned this in the car business. So I used to work for a guy named Grant Cardone. Anybody know Grant Cardone? I used to be his national sales manager. All right. And when I worked for him, he was focused only on in the automotive industry. And in the automotive industry, we used to teach this switch strategy. So people would call in on an ad. If you ever shop for a car, I don't know if you look at cars on the newspaper anymore, but back then, you open the Sunday paper, you see all the auto ads, and then people would call in because you had this one bargain car for sale, and people would call in on that. And the training that we used to teach people was when they call in that car, it's not available, but I have this one available and I have this. So when can you come in and take a look at it? What we call the switch car strategy. Well, when I started in real estate some years ago, it made perfect sense with open houses to use it as a switch strategy. I would show up at an open house. I would create a little binder envelope. I would print the MLS sheets out for all of our competitor houses, the other active properties that were on the market that would similar, like if they were looking at this house, they probably should look at these other houses. If you think like a buyer and not like a seller, put those in the binder in the little plastic thing. And when they walked through the house, I never accompanied them. I said, hey, I'll be right here if you have any questions, because I wanted to catch them on the way out. And I wanted to make sure I caught people on the way in. And we registered people. And on the way out, if they didn't stop the chat, I knew they weren't interested, right? Then I would just look at them and I'd say something like, not a good fit. They said no. And I'd say, have you seen these? And I'd hand them the switch book. And that would stop them in their track. They slipped through these. They said, no, I haven't seen these. I said, would you like to? And next thing you know, I got a buyer lead by offering to sell them the competitive house. Does that make sense? So if it's clear that the open house isn't the right house, and there's a very low probability that it is, hand them the switch. Oh, not the right house. No big. It is what it is. Listen, you're not going to take somebody in an open house. They walk through it. They're not feeling it. Okay. And you're not going to take your three best closes out and stop them and convince them to buy a house that they're not excited about. Right. It's just not going to happen. You're not selling a car. They either like it or they don't. They either want it or they don't. They either have questions or they don't. If they don't have questions, they're not interested. So you hand them the switch book and you say, not the right fit. They said, nah, it's not really for us, but thank you very much. All right. And you say, have you seen any of these? And you hand them the switch book. And there should be 3, 4, 5, 6 other properties in there. And if they haven't seen those properties, or if they said, no, I haven't seen this one looks good. Then you say, great. You want to see them? And if your open house ends at 4, I can arrange to see them this afternoon, or we can go tomorrow. And next thing you know, you're having a different conversation with them. So remember, here's the rule of thumb. You're not going to the open house to sell the house. You hope you sell the house. That's an ancillary goal. All right. Your host open houses to get more buyer and seller leads. You need to look at it as a lead magnet, not as an opportunity to sell the house. Now, once in a while, 4%, 4 times out of 100, you will end up selling the house as a result of an open house. But you need to show up with a strategy for the 96% that it's not going to work for. Does that make sense to you guys? So the short answer versus the long answer is yes, I recommend open houses.
I used that strategy very first open house when I re-got my license 6 years ago, and I was holding it open for somebody else. And the agent called me and said, "We already accepted a contract. You still want to have the open?" I said, "Yes." And I took all the other houses that were available and I picked up my very first buyer that way. It's a great strategy.
This is why when you get listings, okay, other agents call you and say, "Hey, are you doing an open house? Can I host an open house for you?" And so if you're a new agent and you got nothing going on in your life, from a business perspective, and maybe nothing in your life either, and you got an open Saturday or Sunday afternoon, and you want to get your business going, you got ants in your pants and you want to get your business going, find somebody in your office or another office, but find somebody in an area that you're interested in doing business, and go just look at all the active homes that are in an area that you want to focus on and a price point that you want to be at, and just call that agent and ask them, or if you can host an open house for them and show it with the switch strategy. You're there to meet new prospects. Sorry
I
about
used to
that.
use the open house as my number one value proposition and pretty much the end of the close in a listing presentation. I would talk about marketing, door knocking it, calling it, dropping flyers, and generating a ton of interest. And then I would say, when we get in there, a lot of times you're going to see neighbors and stuff. We don't care. We want bodies. I'll hire actors to come in there to do it. We want bodies in there because there might be one, two, or three buyers in there, and we want them to see a lot of human beings. And when they see those human beings, guess what happens to the price? And that would
100%.
close the listing right there.
You're making a very good point here. So this is why some people say, I don't want looky-loos. I'm just getting looky-loos. But I agree with you. I like just bodies. All right. The more bodies in the house, the more urgency, the greater the emotional, scarcity. So remember, one of the things that we want to do, if you go to an open house, let's say you show up at an open house, there's a line out the door. Does it make the property more or less desirable? Okay, I was just on vacation, and the most fun thing about vacation for me and probably for you is finding great places to eat, right? And you know where I want to go? I want to go to the restaurants where you can't get a reservation, right? I walk by a place and I see a line out the door. I'm like, how do we get in there? All right. I figure it out. I bribe a concierge or the doorman or, open table. I call American Express and say, "Hey, can you get me in there?" All right. And oftentimes we find our way in there. And so it's the same thing with open houses. The more people that are in there, the more scarcity, urgency, and fear of loss, the more desirable it is. And that is what raises the perceived value of the house. Okay. The competitive environment. So
Can I
100%.
interject?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we do open houses and we've had excellent results, especially since we began to take short videos of the property. And then whoever came in and signed in and showed interest and left us an email address, we would then email or send via text the short video, because we know when people have looked at 3, 4, 5 houses, they begin to confuse one with the other.
That's right.
Confuse the features. And so this allows that potential buyer to review the house again rather than have it confused with something else. And we end up fairly frequently getting that person to actually buy the house, which allows us to double dip.
Right. 100%. Now, listen, I got to the point in my career where I didn't want to do open houses anymore because I had too many transactions. But you remember my last couple of years, I was doing 150, 100, transactions a year. It's just too much. Some of you are doing 20 transactions a year and don't have any time. So imagine, leveling that up, multiple. So the way I did it is I had showing agents on my team, and I would have them ultimately host the open houses, but their job was to find more buyer transactions. Those were the only deals that they could do. Their job for me was simply to show buyers houses, and when they found the property, to give the deal back to me and I would negotiate it. So I didn't go show property. My policy was, if I don't like you enough to buy you dinner, I'm not showing you houses either, right? If we were buds and we were going to hang out, well, great. Okay. But if we weren't, you were going to meet a showing agent and they would unlock the doors. When you found the house that you liked, all right, it would come back to me and I would pick it up from there. And I would be the one representing them, which is different than showing them houses, right? You don't need me to unlock a door for you, all right? You don't need to watch me struggle with a lockbox. So we let somebody else do that, and it would come back to me to do that. Just remember, open houses are to get more buyer and seller leads.
What are you putting in the book? You do a lot of pictures.
It's like a front and a back. So I've got the regular detailed MLS sheet. You know,
Right.
it's got the cover photo and the sale price, all that. And then on the back, I put one of the pages of photos on it. And so they can, you know, hopefully there's a money shot in there that make people want to talk about, oh, I haven't seen this one. This one looks great. Great. You want to see it?
And you'd put in a 3-ring binder or something?
Yep. So every active comp, all right, every active comp put in that book. So if it's 3, it's 5, it's 10, more the better. And I just asked them, I said, this one's not a good fit. They said, no, not really. I said, well, have you seen these? And you hand them the book. It stops them in their tracks. 100%. All right.